You're listening to the Love Your Neighbor podcast.
Hey, welcome to the Love Your Neighbor podcast. It's good to have you with us. Today we have a very special guest that's with us. Scott Tripp, Brandon resident, Brandon aficionado, all things Brandon. Scott Tripp. Scott, welcome. Welcome to the Love Your Neighbor podcast.
Well, thank you, John. It's thank you for having me. I don't know how I got picked for this, but here I am.
Well, like they say, just like me, you too have a face for radio.
I absolutely do, and the body for it.
Yeah, we're thinking about doing a swimsuit calendar, the Men of Brandon, and I was going to kind of ask you here as an opportunity. Would you like to join me in that?
It's funny you should mention that because I told my wife I was going to do that. I was going to do a flooring calendar, and then I told her I was coming on this, and she said I have a body for radio too. So I think we're just going to stick with that.
Yeah, well, I'm sure, as we're trying to generate business and leads, it's probably best for you and I both to stay fully clothed. Scott, I obviously known you for a long time, but God, it's a privilege to have you here, and I'm thankful that you came in. And we're just kind of introducing you. I mean, we kind of joke about it sometimes about your family and stuff, but you're maybe even in your own family, you're kind of like the one that doesn't get as much press as you talked about this. But I mean, tell us a little bit about you and how you got to Brandon, your family, et cetera.
Well, I'm going to age myself a little bit, but we moved here in 1979, and I was in 7th grade. It's actually kind of a good year to move here. Brandon won state football championship, and the whole town was wild, And back then, I was trying to think about it. I don't think there was 2,000 people total in Brandon when we moved here, And it was a small knit community. We lived out in the country, but we lived in Sioux Falls, and I don't know how our parents thought about it or whatever, but heard about the Brandon School District, and I mean, this is back in the 70s, and Brandon was starting to boom, and we moved out here, and we just fell in love with the area and the people and the community.
Yeah. So you kind of were, I mean, and so we could maybe understand that part of you moving was part of that growth of Brandon then. Once you guys moved out here, that kind of catalyzed.
Absolutely. It kind of, once they hear the Tripp boys are moving to town, everything either runs or comes to the town. So that's kind of how Sioux Falls was probably happy to have us leave.
Sure. They started growing too.
They really grew.
Yeah, that's interesting. Well, you obviously, so Brandon partly it wasn't your choice. You were brought here. You moved here as a 7th grader, but you've now kind of chosen Brandon as your own. You've picked it. You've kind of chose. You could probably live lots of places, but why have you chose to make Brandon home?
After school, I joined the military, and I got to see the world. Really loved it, enjoyed it. But one thing I noticed when I was in the full-time Army was you don't really have a family life. I love the military. I really do. I love my brothers and sisters. But, there's that thing where every 2 to 4 years you pick up and you completely unhinge your family and move. And I was single at the time and honestly didn't want to raise a family moving every 2 to 4 years. And I don't mean any disrespect to anybody in the military. That's not how I was raised. I was raised go to grandma's on Sunday with potluck and nap afterwards, and that's where I got my physique. But my mom had a big family, and they're all within probably 100 miles when I was a little kid, and on Sundays when people are around, we went and had family day, and I missed that, not just being lonely from home and being alone, but there was just something. And then when I was in Germany, I noticed the little towns I'd travel when I had some time off, and you see the German culture and how close-knit they were. We used to stay with families and how they'd sweep the streets and keep their communities just beautiful. And we would back our howitzers and everything right into their yard because this was before the Cold War. We guarded the east and west German border with 109 howitzers, and part of our training would be to pull into a town and set up as if there's a war. We'd pull right into people's yards and set up on a spade and just trash their yard, and they'd come and thank us and ask us if we want supper. I mean, they appreciate us there. We appreciate it. And that family aspect, I just kept yearning for home. And when I was looking at different duty stations, I ended up going to the reserves and coming back to Sioux Falls. Mm-hmm. I just felt that need to come back here, And I joke. There's 4 boys in our family. We're all 4 years apart. I'm the oldest, shortest, fattest, grayest, wisest, and best looking. But there's some of those we argued about. But I miss my brothers and their families, and I wanted to start a family and do some things, and so I moved back. Unbeknownst to me, I moved back, and my parents sold their company and went to northern Minnesota to buy a restaurant and lounge area, and they needed some help. So I went up there because I was still single and helped them for 4 or 5 years. And once again, I realized that even though my family was there, other than my brothers, it just wasn't home. Mm-hmm. So I moved back to Brandon in 96. I was dating this young gal back in Sioux Falls, Patty, my wife, since 89. And she finally, after I don't know how many proposals, said yes. And that's when I knew I was going to be a good salesman, because I never took no for an answer. I keep telling her that too. When I want my way, I'm just persistent. But we moved back in 96 to Brandon. We got an apartment here and then built a home in 2000.
Yeah.
Out in the country. So
you were into sales, and that was kind of your thing after the military, right? Like that was your.
Yep. I started in a warehousing business, and then I went to actually come full circle. I worked for a kid that's in my Bible study now.
Yeah.
And from, I don't know, must have been 99 until 2006, selling trusses and traveling all over 5 states, and then got into building materials and sold those until 2015. So I met a lot of people, saw a lot of communities, and it's all rural in the 5 states around us here. And but one thing that I was missing, when you're a commissioned salesman, is before even my faith got reconciled, hence the name of my new company, Born Again Spaces. Right. I realized that the American dream isn't just going out and making all this money. It is what I keep leaving back at home every Monday and see Friday. It's all the neighbors, the friends, my family, my wife, even my yard, doing yard work. I just leave Monday, come back Friday, and in the world's eyes, I was making great money and successful and traveling everywhere, but came to a point where that's still not what it is. I was not involved in anything at the community, and I got to be honest. Up until about 2015, the day I quit my sales job and didn't know what I was going to do, if you would have asked me the difference between Split Rock, Redwood, Aspen, I've lived here since 79. I've never looked at a street sign.
Right.
I'm in and out of town and gone. And I said to myself, what can I do to get more involved in the community and be at home at night? Yeah. And so I started a little company and started doing that.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. You make a difference in a lot of people's lives. I mean, talk a little bit about your business. I know you're not trying to push your business. In fact, you were telling me earlier, you're like,
I'm no spring chicken. I ran it up the flagpole with my wife that, maybe I should just retire and take care of the kids. And she informed me that our daughter's 34 years old and gone. I said, well, what about the dog? I mean, I could have supper ready for you every night, slippers. And she still said no. So I had to find something to do.
Besides hunting and
and fishing and providing for the family, which I thought was a good plan. But no, it obviously, there's 2 votes in the family, and she gets 2, and I settle for whatever one it is. But so I started a little business and started doing some closets and garage organization, because I knew that I was just always that guy growing up in my life that friends always ask you to help move, and I could look at a moving van and go, put this here, and get everything in the truck. And it's like putting Jenga back in reverse, But so I started doing that, and it kind of morphed into this flooring business. And I don't want to plug my company, but one thing that I get to do, and it's when I first started, it's kind of fun. When I finally gave my life to Christ, you were there, it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I couldn't come up with the name of the company, and I thought Born Again Spaces. It really kind of references what's happened to me and what's going on in my life. I'm just kind of starting over midlife, and it created a lot of constructive conversations with people as they ask me when I'm in the garage or whatever and visiting with them. It really isn't about putting a coating on the floor. I mean, that's the means to the end for me. I just love it. I love people. I finally got the chance to one-on-one with people in this town. And I drive through now and look at all the jobs I've done, and I kind of giggle at all the people. But hindsight, I should have known those people if I would have been here for those 25 years I was on the road. I should have known them. I mean, our daughter was older, and she's my stepdaughter, so she went to school in Sioux Falls. So I didn't have that relationship with all the band and church and sports families like they have now. That's one thing I'm a little jealous of. I have a lot of friends, but I don't have those close ones that you grow up with because you grow with your kids. But so I started mentoring in Sioux Falls and Brandon about 4 or 5 years ago, and I just want to give back. Yeah. And it's making it whole. It's making it worthwhile to get up in the morning and go out. And I try to frequent all the businesses, and I hope Anytime Fitness isn't listening, but I do drive by their gym every day, and I am starting to feel the burn. I haven't got a membership yet, but it does work if you drive by at least once or twice a day.
Hey, that's a powerful impact that they're having. I drive by it every day too. I mean, we need to drive by closer. That's good. That's good. Well, how would you? So you've been a different. You've had your own biological family. You've had, that extended family. You've had the military community family. Now, kind of embracing this, the Brandon community recently. How do you? I mean, if you had to explain what a community is to a young kid that was going to go on, how would you explain what community means, Scott?
While traveling, I spent some time in bigger cities, Chicago, and I've been in New York, but bigger cities for trade shows and things like that. And one thing I noticed in the cities, and even in Minneapolis, it doesn't have that hometown feel. And I know they all have the relationships, but people look down. They don't say hi. You say good morning in the elevator, and they kind of turn away. In Brandon, you can walk into Sunshine in the morning, 10 people, hey, good morning, Happy New Year, how you been? You can barely get out of there. Right. Just having that community that has your back. I mean, this community has been rocked. It's been blessed. It's been rocked. It's been blessed. And when it's rocked, the community steps up, whether it's sickness or loss, or even it's been blessed with babies. Families get together and they bring food over. I mean, that doesn't happen everywhere in the country. People don't understand that. It happens a lot of places. It really does. But this is my place, and I love that it happens here. And I love being able to be a part of that. The easiest way to explain to a young person is it's that feeling of belonging. Like I said, I've had a lot of families, and our family tree is a shelter belt. I mean, it's got more branches than McCarty Park on it, but I love that. I mean, that's, and I just embrace it. And Brandon is my family. I mean, our house is always open, and there's a lot of people that are that way, and that's community. That's normalcy. That's family, and that's Brandon. Yeah. Brandon gets a bad rap. They, it's all just about sports. Everybody else outside looking in, and and I probably shouldn't say what I say about Chicago when I was there, but I did, so I'm going to own up to it. People say things about Brandon, but there's still a lot of people that want to live here. Yeah. And there's good reason for that. Yeah. And you don't get it till you're here. Right.
Yeah, it really is the people. I mean, the people of Brandon. I've only been here for 6 years living, but I mean, just meeting people like you and your brothers who have chosen. I mean, they could be a lot of different places, but they've chosen to be here and invest. And I think you're right. I think having lived in Sioux Falls, there's this perception, it's them and us, but really it's all of us. I mean, we're all in the community of Brandon, but we're also part of a bigger community of, you mentioned faith. We're part of a faith community that's way bigger than us.
Absolutely.
And there's people that you and I touch every day. There's people that are listening to this podcast. You're maybe on your way to work right now. Maybe you're on your way to school right now, and you're wherever you're at, your community's there. It's present. you're an encouragement to me, man, and I appreciate you being on here. Thank you for your service to our country, by the way. I know you didn't do it for what you hear, but I appreciate you and your serving and all the different ways that you serve. So
I appreciate you having me.
Thanks, Scott.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on the Love Your Neighbor podcast. The purpose of the Love Your Neighbor podcast is to build community one conversation at a time. You can help us build that community by sharing the podcast on your social media channels and rating our podcast on whatever platform you're listening from. Another way is to let us know of any neighbors who have a story. Go LYNX!